My situation was that I went to Los Angeles. I was a recording artist and a radio personality at the time, and I was recording for an upcoming concert when I had a tragic accident happen to me, a near-death, near-fatal accident, automobile accident, and I was basically ripped apart. I required several surgeries, 12 plus.
Oh, my wife called at work and she was screaming on the other line. On the other end. And I didn't know what happened. And she told me that a nurse called from a trauma center and said that Michael was in a very serious accident and you need to come to the hospital right away.
Well, initially, we just had to make sure that he survived. That was the biggest concern, that I had my son and I knew how strong he was, and there was a lot of willing him to stay alive. And from there, once we knew everything worked, his spine worked, his head worked, then we had to get into, again, quality of life issues. How could we get him off these tubes out of him and he survive and go on with his life?
Urologist did come in and tell me that your bladder had been torn in half and you have a urethral stricture, which at the time, a 19-year-old kid, I had no idea what that meant. But I would come to find out that it was a very serious problem that needed to be dealt with. Otherwise, the quality of my life, I wouldn't be able to do simple things like just pee, for instance. I wouldn't be able to go anywhere without bags on my leg and tubes in my bladder and in my penis, and I wouldn't be able to live a normal life. So when I found out about that, that actually became the most important part of my recovery and the hardest part. My low point was when the doctors of the original urology department, they said, okay, we scoped you with the camera and that didn't work. We tore out catheters, those didn't work, and actually those caused damage to my urethra, so it was counterproductive. And then they said, let's just try catheterizing, or self-cathing is what they called it, where I take the catheter in my penis and move it in and out 3 times a day, which first of all is unnatural and excruciatingly painful. I had a gap, I had a stricture, a urethral stricture, and I didn't see how that was going to solve my ailment.
Actually, I did have a lot of frustration, but you know what? I was following what they were saying, and I was saying, Michael, you need to do what they tell you to do. They're the doctors. And I didn't realize that they were giving us kind of wrong information, so I'm telling Michael, you need to be strong. You need to do what they want you to do. And he's arguing, Dad, but what they want me to do is painful and it's not working. And I said, well, they'll eventually get to the point where there'll be some resolution in this matter. And then when they said that, well, we're pretty much done, there's not much you're going to be able to do, but self-cath, every time you need to urinate, probably 3 times a day, you're going to have to take a catheter and put it in your penis and put it up into your bladder. And of course, that's excruciating. And I can't imagine somebody, especially a 19-year-old or anybody, doing it.
We were actually told we wouldn't want a uroplasty. That was frustrating to me because we were told he had to be catheterized, but I could never understand, how do you catheterize yourself when your urethra is shredded into pieces? So how was he supposed to manage to do that on himself? That was the biggest crux of having to get through that and tell him that's the rest of your life. You're going to be doing this every time you needed to urinate. You're going to have to take control and try to figure out how to get the catheter in when there's a gap in your urethra. I could never figure that, how we were going to get through this.
When they discharged me and said, that's all we can do for you. If you don't want to do this method, then that's the best we can help you with. I think that was the lowest point, when I just was, what am I going to do? And if it weren't for my loving family and supportive family who helped me, because mentally I was unable to help myself at that point, search out doctors like Dr. Gelman specifically to put me back together and revive the quality of my life, I wouldn't know what to do. So the lowest point was after they discharged me, I would say, when there was no hope, no hope.
I spent numerous hours on the internet, numerous hours, chat groups, support groups, looking up, Googling sentence after sentence after sentence, torn urethra, repairs, what can you do, this and that, and then I Googled repair of urethra, and it came up open end-to-end urethroplasty. I learned and started researching a procedure called open end-to-end urethroplasty, and then other procedures where they would take part of your mouth and make a urethra. And so I said, well, wait, now that there is something here. I don't know how good it is. I don't know what, can we get this? Is it experimental? And then when I found out that there are only a select few that do this procedure and are successful at it, I mean, my hopes, I went through the roof. I mean, I was, wow, there's something, excuse me. There is a possibility that something can be done. Well, when I made that call, I got his office and I spoke to a lady there in his office, and she asked me several questions and asked me for a callback number and that she would see about an appointment. Well, 10 minutes later, I didn't get a call back from her or anybody in the office. I got a call back from Dr. Gelman. And I was really shocked because a lot of times doctors just don't do that. They wait till you get to the office. And he was asking me what happened. And we talked about it, and he says, okay, well, we need to get you in right away. Let's get an appointment scheduled, get you in right away. And it was a call from him, not his staff. I was ecstatically joyful. I said, wow, I can't believe it. Here I got the doctor calling me back within 10 minutes. He says that there's hope. He's not giving us any false promises. He's not sugarcoating, and he's treating me like he knew. He was inside my mind. He knew what I was going through, and probably what my son was going through, and he wanted to assure me and that he would do everything and he did possible to help give Michael a normal life back. Mm-hmm.
It got better when my dad called Dr. Gelman, and Dr. Gelman returned his call within that evening. And that to me signaled that, hey, this is a guy who cares about my life. I'm not just a patient to him. I'm not just the status quo. I'm not just a number. He actually cares about putting me back together and getting me back on track so that I won't have to go through procedures again, so that I won't have to cause myself pain and injure myself. So I think that was the real hope, was when my dad told me, hey son, I found someone and he knows what he's doing.
Well, the first meeting was kind of funny. My wife, Michael's mother, of course, and I and Michael were in the waiting room at UC Irvine. And I didn't know it was Dr. Gelman. He comes out and he's looking around, and he comes up to us, and he came around and he says, oh, Michael Fogno, Mr. and Mrs. Fogno, I'm Dr. Gelman. He greeted us in the waiting room at UC Irvine, and I was like, wow, he's looking out for us, as if he couldn't wait to see us, as if he knew in his soul and in his heart what we were going through and wanted to comfort us in a professional way. He was very friendly, and he said, I'm going back to my office now, and we'll see you soon.
When we met Dr. Gelman, he just relieved all of our fears. He listened to all my questions. He had answers for us, and now we had a plan. There was a way to go that had proven results. Dr. Gelman had an amazing track record, and really what he did for us was he gave my son that trust. The first thing he did was talk to my son about my son's interests. He developed a doctor-patient relationship. He didn't ask us to see the films that we brought. He didn't ask what was the past history. He had already discussed that with my husband. He knew the most important thing at this point was to gain my son's trust and allay his fears as well. And that's why he is such a blessing to our family, because he gave us our son back. He gave my son his life back.
My initial impression of Dr. Gelman was, here's a guy who's as smart as anyone you've ever heard about, but he had that level of humanity too, to where he made you feel like not just a patient, like a person. And we talked about music. He knew I was this young kid coming in that I had no idea what was going to happen to me or what. I was out of it. And Dr. Gilman brought me back in, and he had a formula. He formulated a plan and said, "This is what's going to happen. We're going to scope you. We're going to do a dye test to see exactly where the problem is. And after we find that out, we're going to get you in for surgery." There was no messing around. There was no, "Hey, let's try this, let's do that." He had a formulated plan. And to me, that was the biggest thing, because we finally had direction. I met a guy who treated me like a human being, and he gave me hope and direction. And that to me was worth all the gold in the world. I mean, that gave me hope that I'm going to be myself again. I'm going to return to how I was. And Dr. Gelman is just an amazing person, amazing human being, and an amazing doctor.
There was a huge sense of relief. Yes, there was a very huge sense of relief. It was there. I was thinking forward to the future here. We finally, in my mind, I knew that we just not only had somebody that was skilled in his craft, but had somebody with the caring, manner that he had, and the bedside manner, and the human side of it. It wasn't doctor-patient relation. It was doctor-patient humane relationship. And it was just one of the most caring doctors or people I've actually ever met in my life.
Everything Dr. Gelman said, he followed through with. He was there for us. He was patient with us. He was patient with my son. He was wonderful. He had techniques that were not painful. My son could tell you himself how fearful he was when the tubes had to be pulled out, but the methods that he used were just so proven and had been used before, and it was virtually painless. And he allayed all our fears. It was truly a blessing, is really how I could, and I've said that to Dr. Gelman too, that he really blessed our lives and gave our son a quality of life, that now he's gone on, he has met the woman of his dreams, and they're going to have a beautiful life together.
Blessing of life today is that we're leading a normal life. Yeah, we have problems like every family, of course, but the thing is he's engaged to a lovely, lovely lady. I call her my daughter-in-law right now, without even the marriage. He's able to live a normal life. He is going to be able to have children. He is not in pain. He's not catheterizing himself every day. There's no nurses around him. He goes fishing. We do things together. We go to the movies. We go out to dinner. We do a lot. We travel to visit his sister back east who graduated Princeton University and take family vacations. And it's all normal. We're not sitting there with a handicapped son. We're sitting here now with a normal son, all thanks to Dr. Gelman's skills and his caring manner. I don't know how to thank him myself either. There's no words that can ever thank him and his staff enough, and the hospital.
I would just like to say that what I've learned from this too is, in life, you have to learn that in every situation there is something to be thankful for. No matter how small, that you can appreciate the small things in life, and even in a situation like this, there are life lessons, and we are so appreciative and so grateful to Dr. Gelman for all he did, that it's really changed me as a person knowing him. My son is my life, and I couldn't live without him. So I couldn't live without him being in pain and suffering. And now to see him functioning, happy, getting on with his life is the most amazing, thing that I can really ask for. A lot of prayers went out, and I think Dr. Gelman answered those prayers.